In statement and assumptions, first we need to understand what we exactly mean by assumption. Assumption means to assume some things without any proof, without any concrete evidence. When we say some things or assume something, it is nothing but an assumption. Now over here in these type of questions, you will be given one statement, okay, and there will be two or more assumptions, and what you need to do is you need to decide whether the assumptions are true or relevant to the statement, okay. You have to just decide whether the assumption is true or relevant to the statement. Now very important, please pay attention, it is very easy. How to decide whether it is true or relevant to the given statement? Very easy. Use your logic, common sense and general awareness to decide whether the assumption is true or not, okay. Even if you don't follow any set pattern or if you don't follow any rules or anything like that, then also it is fine. You can simply use your logic, common sense and general awareness to decide whether an assumption is relevant or not. Now we are going to tell you some tips that would make it very easy and quick to solve the sums related to statement assumptions. But please remember, even if you don't, if you are not able to recollect the tips or if you are not able to recollect the rules, okay, still it is very easy by logic and common sense that you can find the answer, okay. Before going on to the tips, another important thing that you should know, the words implicit and explicit. Implicit actually means, if you check the dictionary, implicit means something has been suggested or told but not directly. This is not direct. Indirectly something has been mentioned, okay, hidden meaning and all that stuff. Explicit means directly it has been mentioned, very clearly it has been explained, so that is explicit. Unclear or not directly mentioned, that is implicit. But in sums related to statement assumptions, implicit means true and explicit is opposite, that is nothing but false. So if a assumption is implicit, that means whatever statement is that statement is given, we can derive the assumption from it, the assumption is true. If the assumption is explicit, that means the assumption is false, okay. Explicit assumption means it is false. We cannot directly derive it from the statement, or we cannot assume directly from the statement. Now remember, implicit true, explicit false. Apart from this, another very important tip, this is the first tip that I would like to tell you, that is, whenever you see the words like every, each, none, nobody, all, only, etc., always remember the assumption will be explicit, that is, it will be false, okay. Just remember this, whenever you see the words like every, each, none, nobody, all, only, etc., the assumption is false or explicit, right? Now we will show you more tips also, but we will explain the tips along with some examples, okay. Let's move on to example number 1. Statement: liquid soap should be used in place of soap bars to wash hands. Assumption: soap bars are harsher to skin than liquid soaps. Over here, the first and foremost tip is stick to the statement. Stick to the statement. The assumption has to stick to the statement. Assumption has to be relevant to the statement. Now over here, if you observe closely, you will see that soap bars are there, liquid soap is there. So you might say that this is relevant to the statement, but actually it is not. Statement is regarding washing the hands using liquid soap instead of soap bars. There is nothing mentioned about soap bars being harsh or the harshness of liquid soap or soap bars, okay. So the assumption is actually not relevant to the statement. So this is a explicit assumption, or the assumption is not implicit, okay. Moving on to the next tip. Statement: electric vehicles produce less air pollutants. Assumption: electric vehicles will be the only means of transportation in future. Always remember, the assumptions which talk about the past or the future are always explicit, okay. That means they are always false. Over here, statement is electric vehicles produce less air pollutants. This is the current state, or currently they are talking about. They are not talking about past or future. Assumption is talking about the future. So past and future. If the assumption talks about the past or future, it is always explicit. That means it is not implicit. Moving to the next step. Question number 3, statement. Warning. Cell phone use prohibited beyond this point. Assumption. This warning is not necessary. Please remember, whenever the assumption goes against the statement, okay, against the statement, then the assumption is, yes, you are right, it is explicit. That is, it is false. Okay. Now over here, pay close attention. Over here they have given warning. A warning has been given, like a board or something like that. It has been written that cell phone use is prohibited beyond this point. So this warning has been given to people, but assumption is that the warning is not necessary. Why? This is going against the statement. The statement says that there is a warning and you have to follow the warning. The reason might be anything, that it might be a very restricted area, or due to the radiation there might be some problems or interference and all that stuff. So this warning is very important, and it has that is the reason, since it is important, it has been put up on the wall or whatever, on signpost or something like that. But the assumption says that this warning is not necessary. It is an important, so this is going against the statement, right? So if someone says that this paper will get wet because of water, and assumption says that water will not make the paper wet, right? So this is going against the statement, right? If there is a statement, so when such things are there, always remember the assumption is explicit. Okay, assumption going against statement, it is explicit. Moving to the next step. Statement. Seats allocated for only physically disabled people. Assumption. Only females who are physically disabled can occupy such seats. Now this is a very important tip. Variants of this tip can be asked in exam, so please pay close attention over here. Whenever the statement is very generalized, okay, whenever the statement is very generalized and the assumption is very specific, then the assumption is explicit. Okay, I'll explain what do we mean by generalized and specific, but just remember the tip. Okay, whenever statement is generalized, assumption is specific, the assumption will be explicit. Same way, if the statement is specific and if the assumption is generalized, the assumption will be explicit again. Now let us see what is generalized and specific. Here, what is the statement? Seats allocated for only physically disabled people. That means the seats which are there, they are for all the physically disabled people. Okay, only for the physically disabled people. This is a general statement, but the assumption is that only the females who are physically disabled occupy such seat. So within the physically disabled category, only the females who are physically disabled, only they will occupy the seats. This has been assumed. So it is a very specific assumption. So if statement is generalized and if assumption is very specific, then it is explicit. Okay, so and vice versa also. If they say that seats are allocated for only females who are physically disabled, okay, and assumption would be that all the physically disabled people can occupy such seats, then also it is wrong, right? Now in this step, if you try to look at it logically or using common sense, what is the, you can easily understand what the statement has been given, that all the physically disabled people can sit on those seats, and they are assuming that only the females who are physically disabled can occupy the seats. So here only you can directly by logic say that the assumption is very wrong. Okay, but still remember, when statement is generalized and assumption is specific, the assumption is explicit, as well as the opposite is also true. Statement specific, assumption generalized, then the assumption will be explicit, that is false. Let's take a look at few sums related to statement, assumptions, and try to use these tricks over there. Statement. Government has asked the financial institutions to lower the interest rate for agricultural loans. Assumptions. This will increase per hectare productivity in future. This move will help farmers in paying less interest amount and thus their profits may increase. Over here, first assumption, talking about the future. So this will be explicit. Okay. Now in exam, you will always find in your paper, online paper, you will always find statement, assumptions, and 4 to 5 options would be given. The first option would be only assumption 1 is implicit, that is true. Only assumption 2 is implicit, that is true. Either 1 or 2 is true, neither 1 or 2 is true, both 1 and 2 are true. You have to choose out of these. Now over here we have found out that the first one is explicit, so this cannot be implicit, either 1 or 2, this cannot be implicit, and even this cannot be implicit. So we have to choose between B and D. Let us see the second assumption. This move will help farmers in paying less interest amount and thus their profits will increase. Now if the interest rates have been lowered, the farmers will pay less interest amount, that is logical, okay, common sense. And if they pay less interest amount, but obviously they'll get more profit. So this is an implicit assumption. So only second assumption is implicit. This is the answer. See how easy it is. Very easy. Just remember the tips which we have learned till now and you will very easily be able to solve the sums. Statement: if he is smart, he will crack the interview. Assumption: to crack an interview, smartness is required. Second one is he will definitely crack the interview. Now here the statement is if he is smart, then only he will crack the interview. So what does that mean? To crack an interview, smartness is needed. Okay, so this becomes an implicit. By common sense, by logic, you can derive this. Okay, so this is an implicit assumption. Second one, he will definitely crack the interview. Now over here they are saying that the person will definitely crack the interview. Do we know whether the person is smart or not? They have just given that if the person is smart, he will crack. If he is not smart, he will not crack. But here we have declared directly, we have assumed directly that the person will definitely crack the interview. So this is false. We cannot do such a thing. So this is an explicit assumption. So only assumption 1 is implicit. Moving on. Statement: sunlight is a good source of vitamin D. Assumption: sun is the only source of vitamin D. Second, vitamin D is obtained in very small amounts from sun. Now the first assumption, sun is the only source of vitamin D. Has it been mentioned in the statement anywhere that sun is the only source of vitamin D? It is just they have just said that sunlight is good source of vitamin D. So this is like not that relevant to the statement given. Okay, so this is like we are assuming something very arbitrarily, right? So this is general statement and this becomes like sort of a specific statement that sun is the only source of vitamin D. So this becomes an explicit statement or explicit assumption. Moving on to second one, vitamin D is obtained in very small amounts from the sun. Sunlight is good source of vitamin D. And the assumption says it is obtained in very small amounts. Going against the statement means explicit assumption. So neither 1 nor 2 is implicit. Have you understood how this goes against the statement? Because over here they say small amount and here they are saying good source. So it is exactly opposite to the statement, going against the statement. So it is explicit. Statement: to regain the market share, company X has decided to launch new products in the market. Assumption: company X is incurring heavy losses. There are many competitors in the market. Now take a look at the first assumption. Company X is incurring heavy losses. Where the hell it is mentioned that company X is in loss and so only it has decided to launch new products and all that stuff? So this is an explicit assumption. This is not true at all. Nothing is mentioned. This is irrelevant. There is nothing mentioned. There is no mention of losses over there. Okay. Second, there are many competitors in the market. Now prima facie, when you look at this statement, you might think that this is irrelevant and there is nothing mentioned regarding competitors in the statement. But if you observe carefully, what have they said? To regain the market share. So company X has lost the market share, and to whom will they lose the market share? Only when there are other competitors who take in the market share, then only they will have less market share and they will have to regain the market share from other competitors. So that means we can say that there are many other competitors in the market. So this is an implicit assumption. So only A, or answer is A, only assumption 1 is implicit. See how easy it is. Statement assumptions are very easy. Just use your logic, common sense and general awareness. Try to follow the tips. Please remember the tips. It will save you valuable time in exam so that you will directly mark the answer whether it is explicit or implicit. It's very easy. Just practice and you will be able to master this topic.